The Legacy of Jonathan and Amanda. Chapter 1: The Meeting. Amanda lived in a small, quiet village nestled between rolling hills and lush green fields. Her family was poor, but her mother, Clara, had raised her with love and care, teaching her the importance of kindness, hard work, and integrity. Amanda was 17, with bright eyes that shone with curiosity and a heart full of dreams. She often helped her mother with chores and took care of their small home, making the most of what they had. One sunny afternoon, Amanda decided to take a walk to the village market. The air was fresh, and the scent of blooming flowers filled her with a sense of hope. She loved the market. It was a place full of life and colors, where she could forget her worries for a while. As she wandered through the market, she noticed a young man standing near a fruit stall. He was tall and handsome, with an air of nobility that made him stand out from the villagers. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his eyes were a deep shade of blue, filled with warmth and curiosity. Amanda felt an inexplicable pull towards him and found herself walking closer. As she reached the stall, their eyes met. The young man smiled, and Amanda felt her heart skip a beat. "Hello," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "I'm Jonathan." "Amanda," she replied, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. She couldn't help but notice how his smile made her feel at ease. Jonathan picked up an apple and handed it to her. "Do you like apples?" Amanda nodded, taking the apple from him. "Thank you." She took a bite, savoring the sweetness of the fruit. It was the best apple she had ever tasted. They began to talk, and Amanda learned that Jonathan was visiting the village for a few days. He didn't mention his royal status, and Amanda assumed he was just another visitor. They walked around the market together, laughing and sharing stories. Amanda felt a connection with Jonathan that she had never felt with anyone before. He listened to her with genuine interest, and his laughter was contagious. As the sun began to set, Jonathan walked Amanda home. They stood at her doorstep, reluctant to say goodbye. "I hope I see you again," Jonathan said softly, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. Amanda smiled. "I hope so too." She watched him walk away, feeling a sense of longing she couldn't quite explain. That night, Amanda couldn't stop thinking about Jonathan. She had no idea that he was the prince, and that their meeting would change her life forever. As she lay in bed, she replayed their conversations in her mind, smiling at the memory of his laughter and the way he looked at her. She wondered if he was thinking about her too. Chapter 2: Blossoming Love. The next few days were magical for Amanda and Jonathan. Each day felt like a new adventure, filled with laughter and shared moments that brought them closer. They met in secret, away from the prying eyes of the villagers and Amanda's mother, Clara, who had grown increasingly suspicious of her daughter's absences. Amanda and Jonathan spent their days exploring the village and its beautiful surroundings. They would walk through the forest, the canopy of trees providing a cool shade from the summer sun, and sit by the river, the gentle sound of flowing water creating a serene backdrop for their conversations. Jonathan was captivated by Amanda's simplicity and genuine nature, while Amanda was drawn to Jonathan's kindness and charm. One afternoon, as they sat by the river, Jonathan reached into his bag and pulled out a book. "Have you ever read this?" he asked, handing it to Amanda. Amanda shook her head, tracing her fingers over the worn cover. "No, I haven't. What is it about?" Jonathan smiled. "It's a collection of poems. My mother used to read it to me when I was a child. I thought you might like it." Amanda opened the book and began to read aloud, her voice soft and melodic. Jonathan closed his eyes, listening to the way she brought the words to life. It was in these quiet moments that Jonathan realized he was falling in love with Amanda. Her presence was a balm to his soul, and he couldn't imagine his life without her. As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew stronger. They shared their dreams and fears, their hopes and secrets. Jonathan told Amanda about his love for adventure and how he wanted to see the world beyond the palace walls. He spoke of the pressures of being a prince, the expectations that weighed heavily on his shoulders, and his desire to find his own path. Amanda, in turn, shared her dreams of a better life for her and her mother. She spoke of her desire to learn, to explore the world beyond their small village, and to find a place where she could truly belong. She confided in Jonathan about her struggles, the hardships she and her mother faced, and the hope that kept her going. Their love blossomed, and they cherished every moment they spent together. They knew their time was limited, but they refused to let that dampen their spirits. They lived in the present, savoring each second, each touch, each word. However, Amanda's mother, Clara, began to notice the change in her daughter. She saw the way Amanda's eyes sparkled when she talked about Jonathan and the joy that seemed to radiate from her. Clara was wary of their relationship. She knew the harsh realities of life and didn't want Amanda to get hurt. One evening, Clara confronted Amanda as she was getting ready to meet Jonathan. "Who is this boy you've been seeing?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Amanda hesitated, not wanting to reveal too much. "His name is Jonathan. He's visiting the village for a few days." Clara frowned, her worry deepening. "Be careful, Amanda. You don't know anything about him. He could be trouble." Amanda shook her head, her heart aching at the thought of giving up Jonathan. "He's kind and gentle, Mother. You would like him if you met him." Clara's concern grew. She didn't want to see her daughter's heart broken, especially if this boy was hiding something. She decided to find out more about Jonathan. Despite her mother's disapproval, Amanda continued to see Jonathan. They met in secret, their love growing stronger with each stolen moment. They would meet in the early morning light, when the village was still asleep, or in the quiet of the evening, when the world seemed to belong only to them. One evening, as they sat together by the river, Jonathan took Amanda's hand in his. "I don't want to hide anymore," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I want to meet your mother. I want her to know how much I love you." Amanda's heart swelled with love for Jonathan, but fear also gripped her. "I don't know if she'll approve. She's very protective." Jonathan squeezed her hand. "We'll face it together. I want to be a part of your life, Amanda. All of it." The next day, Jonathan came to Amanda's house, his heart pounding with anticipation. Clara opened the door, her eyes narrowing as she took in the sight of him. Jonathan introduced himself, trying to convey his sincerity through his words and actions. Clara listened, her skepticism evident. But as she watched the way Jonathan looked at Amanda, with such love and respect, her resolve began to waver. She saw the happiness he brought to her daughter and the love that shone between them. Over the next few days, Jonathan continued to visit, slowly earning Clara's trust. He helped with chores, listened to Clara's stories, and proved his intentions were genuine. Clara couldn't deny the positive effect he had on Amanda. The joy and light he brought into their lives were undeniable. But despite her growing acceptance, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She decided to dig deeper into Jonathan's background, determined to protect her daughter at all costs. Chapter 3: The Revelation. Amanda and Jonathan's love continued to flourish despite the growing tension at home. Clara had grown increasingly suspicious of Jonathan, and her protective instincts were on high alert. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. Determined to uncover the truth, she decided to visit the village elder, a wise woman named Eliza, who knew much about the people in and around the village. Clara walked to Eliza's cottage early one morning. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft, golden glow over the village. Eliza greeted her at the door, sensing the urgency in Clara's visit. "Come in, Clara. What troubles you?" Eliza asked, her voice gentle and kind. Clara explained the situation, expressing her concerns about Jonathan and the effect he had on Amanda. Eliza listened carefully, her wise eyes narrowing in thought. "I have heard of a young man named Jonathan who visits the village occasionally," Eliza said slowly. "He is not an ordinary visitor. He is the prince, the only son of the king." Clara's heart sank. She had suspected Jonathan was hiding something, but she hadn't imagined this. Her mind raced as she tried to process the information. The implications were staggering. "Are you sure?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. Eliza nodded. I am certain. He travels in disguise to experience life outside the palace. He's known to be kind-hearted, but his position complicates things. Clara thanked Eliza and hurried home, her mind in turmoil. She knew she had to protect Amanda from the heartache that would inevitably come from loving someone so far above their station. That evening, as Amanda returned from her time with Jonathan, Clara decided it was time to reveal the truth she had kept hidden for so long. Amanda, we need to talk, Clara said, her voice heavy with the weight of the secret. Amanda could see the seriousness in her mother's eyes. She sat down, her heart pounding with anxiety. What is it, Mother? Clara took a deep breath, her eyes filling with tears. There's something I should have told you years ago. Something about your father. Amanda's eyes widened in shock. My father? You told me he died before I was born. Clara shook her head, her tears flowing freely now. That was a lie. Your father is very much alive. He is the king. Amanda felt the world around her collapse. She struggled to grasp the enormity of what her mother was saying. What do you mean? How can this be? Clara took Amanda's hand, her grip firm despite her trembling. I used to work in the royal palace. The king and we had an affair. When I became pregnant, he wanted me to have an abortion to avoid scandal. But I couldn't do it. I ran away and kept you hidden from him all these years. Amanda's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, confusion, and disbelief. So, Jonathan, he's my brother? Clara nodded, her own heart breaking at the pain she saw in her daughter's eyes. Yes, Amanda. You and Jonathan are half-siblings. Amanda stood up, unable to sit still any longer. She paced the room, her thoughts a chaotic jumble. The love she had for Jonathan now seemed forbidden and impossible. The future she had imagined with him shattered into a million pieces. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Amanda cried, her voice filled with anguish. Why did you let me believe he was dead? Clara stood up and embraced her daughter, trying to offer comfort. I wanted to protect you. I thought it was better if you didn't know. I didn't want you to grow up with the burden of who your father is. Amanda pulled away, her anger and hurt too overwhelming to accept her mother's comfort. You lied to me my entire life. You let me fall in love with my brother. Clara's tears flowed unchecked. I'm so sorry, Amanda. I never meant for this to happen. I only wanted to keep you safe. Amanda sank into a chair, her strength drained. She felt like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Her world, her identity, everything she thought she knew had been turned upside down. She needed to tell Jonathan the truth, but the thought of doing so filled her with dread. Chapter 4. Confrontation and Confessions. Amanda spent the night in a turmoil of emotions. The revelation about her father and her relationship with Jonathan left her heartbroken and confused. She knew she had to tell Jonathan the truth, but she feared his reaction and what it would mean for their future. The next morning, Amanda met Jonathan in their usual spot by the river. Her heart ached as she looked at him, knowing that everything was about to change. Jonathan noticed the sadness in her eyes and immediately grew concerned. Amanda, what's wrong? He asked, taking her hands in his. Amanda took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling voice. Jonathan, there's something I need to tell you. Something important. Jonathan's expression grew serious. What is it? Amanda looked into his eyes, gathering her courage. My mother told me something last night. Something about my father. Jonathan, the king is my father. Jonathan stared at her, confusion and disbelief crossing his face. Your father? But that means... Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yes, it means we are brother and sister. Jonathan's grip on her hands tightened, his own emotions swirling. He pulled her into an embrace, trying to process the information. This can't be true. There must be some mistake. There's more, Amanda continued, her voice barely above a whisper. My mother worked in the palace. She had an affair with the king. When she got pregnant, he wanted her to have an abortion, but she ran away to keep me safe. Jonathan's mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. He had always felt a connection with Amanda, but this revelation was too much to bear. He pulled back, looking into her eyes. "We need to talk to my father. We need to find out the truth from him." Amanda nodded, her heart heavy with fear and anticipation. Together, they made their way to the palace, their minds filled with questions and uncertainties. When they arrived, Jonathan requested an audience with the king. The king, surprised by Jonathan's urgency, agreed to see them immediately. As they entered the grand hall, Amanda felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. The king sat on his throne, his regal presence imposing and intimidating. "Jonathan, Amanda, what brings you here?" the king asked, his tone curious but stern. Jonathan stepped forward, his voice steady. "Father, we need to talk to you. There's something important we need to discuss." The king's eyes narrowed, sensing the gravity of the situation. "What is it, my son?" Jonathan took a deep breath. "Amanda's mother told her that you are her father, that she used to work in the palace and had an affair with you. Is this true?" The king's expression shifted from curiosity to shock. He glanced at Amanda, then back at Jonathan. I did have an affair with a maid many years ago, but I didn't know she had a child. She ran away before I could find out." Amanda's heart sank, the confirmation hitting her like a ton of bricks. She looked at Jonathan, her eyes filled with pain and confusion. Jonathan turned back to his father, anger and hurt evident in his voice. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this a secret?" Jonathan demanded. The king sighed, his regal demeanor faltering. "I wanted to avoid scandal. I thought it was for the best. I never imagined this would happen." Jonathan's anger grew. "You thought it was best to abandon your own child? To let her grow up without knowing who she is?" Amanda stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You wanted my mother to have an abortion. You didn't care about us at all." The king's face contorted with guilt. "I was a coward. I'm sorry, Amanda. I can't change the past, but I want to make amends." Jonathan shook his head, his heart heavy with disappointment. "It's too late for that, father. The damage is done." The door to the hall opened, and an older maid entered, her eyes widening as she saw Amanda and Jonathan. She approached them hesitantly. "Your Highness, I need to speak with you." The king nodded, recognizing the maid. "What is it, Martha?" Martha took a deep breath, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I was there when Amanda's mother left the palace. I knew about the affair, but I couldn't speak up." "It's true, Your Highness. Amanda is your daughter." The final confirmation felt like a dagger to Amanda's heart. She turned to Jonathan, her eyes pleading. "What do we do now?" Jonathan took her hand, his resolve firm. "We leave. We can't stay here, surrounded by lies and deceit. We'll find our own way together." The king stood, his voice desperate. "Jonathan, please. Don't leave. We can work this out." But Jonathan shook his head, his decision made. "No, father. Amanda and I need to start fresh, away from all of this." Amanda and Jonathan left the palace, their hearts heavy but determined. They gathered what little they could carry and set off into the night, leaving behind the pain and betrayal. They didn't know what the future held, but they had each other, and that was enough. As they walked hand in hand, Amanda looked up at Jonathan. "Thank you for standing by me." Jonathan squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with love. "We're in this together, Amanda, no matter what." And so they began their journey into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, their love stronger than ever. Chapter 5: A New Beginning. Amanda and Jonathan walked through the night, leaving the village and the palace behind. They felt a mix of fear and excitement as they stepped into the unknown, but they were determined to build a new life together, free from the lies and betrayal that had defined their past. As dawn broke, they found themselves in a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. The beauty of the place offered a sense of peace and hope. They decided to rest for a while, sitting on a fallen log and watching the sun rise. "Amanda, where do we go from here?" Jonathan asked, his voice gentle but filled with uncertainty. Amanda looked at him, her heart swelling with love and determination. We'll find a place where we can start fresh, where no one knows us. We'll build a life together, Jonathan. We have each other, and that's all we need." Jonathan smiled, his fears easing at her words. "You're right. We'll make it through this together." They continued their journey, stopping in small towns and villages along the way. They took on odd jobs to earn money, working side by side and learning to rely on each other more than ever. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, and they found joy in the simplest of things. A shared meal, a beautiful sunset, a moment of laughter. Months passed, and they eventually found a small, welcoming village where they decided to settle down. The villagers were kind and accepting, and Amanda and Jonathan quickly became a part of the community. They rented a small cottage on the edge of the village and set about creating a home filled with love and warmth. One evening, as they sat by the fire in their cozy cottage, Amanda turned to Jonathan. "I've been thinking about our future. What if we open a small shop? We could sell handmade goods and produce from our garden." Jonathan's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's a wonderful idea, Amanda. We could make it a place where everyone feels welcome." Over the next few months, they worked tirelessly to bring their dream to life. They cultivated a beautiful garden, growing fresh fruits and vegetables. Amanda used her creativity to craft beautiful handmade items, while Jonathan took care of the practical aspects of running the shop. Their hard work paid off, and their little shop became a beloved part of the village. The villagers came to admire and respect Amanda and Jonathan for their kindness and dedication. They found happiness in their simple life, surrounded by people who cared for them and supported their dreams. Their love for each other remained as strong as ever, a beacon of hope and resilience. One day, as they were tending to their garden, Amanda looked up at Jonathan, a soft smile on her lips. "Do you ever miss the palace? The life you left behind?" Jonathan shook his head, his eyes filled with love and contentment. "No, Amanda, I don't miss it at all. This is where I belong with you. Our life here may be simple, but it's filled with love and purpose. I wouldn't trade it for anything." Amanda's heart swelled with gratitude and joy. "I feel the same way. We've come so far, and we've built something beautiful together." As they stood in their garden, surrounded by the fruits of their labor, Amanda realized that their journey had been worth every hardship and every sacrifice. They had found a new beginning, a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. Years passed, and Amanda and Jonathan continued to thrive in their little village. They grew older, but their love never wavered. They remained each other's rock, facing every challenge together and finding joy in the simple pleasures of life. One summer evening, as they sat on their porch, watching the sun set over the horizon, Jonathan took Amanda's hand in his. "I'm so grateful for you, Amanda. You've given me a life I never dreamed possible." Amanda leaned her head on his shoulder, her heart full of love. "And I'm grateful for you, Jonathan. You've shown me what it means to truly love and be loved. I wouldn't trade our journey for anything." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, Amanda and Jonathan knew that they had found their happily ever after. Their love had triumphed over every obstacle, and they had built a life together that was rich in love and meaning. And so their story continued, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the courage to start anew. They had found their new beginning, and it was more beautiful than they could have ever imagined.